Cell division. So we're going to be talking about a little bit about why cells divide, and then we're going to be talking about cell division in prokaryotes, bacteria, and then we're going to spend most of our time on mitosis, which is how cells divide in eukaryotes. And then we'll also talk about, actually, we'll spend a lot of time after that on meiosis, which is another type of cell division in eukaryotes, but it's for sexual reproduction. So let's start now with cell division in why you would want to do cell division in general. And this is just a quick review because you guys all know this stuff already. We already covered this stuff. There's maybe one new thing that I haven't talked about before. So why are cells small? So hopefully most of you think diffusion. And then there's one other thing I want to add in here. So the larger a cell demands, the larger a cell becomes, the more demands it places on its, this is weird, on its DNA. So just bear with me for a minute here. This is a cell. We're going to pretend that's a cell. And here's its nucleus. And you know inside the nucleus you have DNA. Oops, I gotta get my pen for this, don't I? DNA. And you know the DNA makes RNA. And then the RNA comes out and makes protein. And so let's say you have protein. Let's say your cell isn't this big. Let's say your cell is this big. And so that means you'd need proteins for all the things that the cell needs all over the place here. And so your DNA can only make RNA so fast, and the RNA can only make the proteins so fast. So you might not end up making the proteins that you need here. So you might have some enzyme that you really need to do something over here, but you just don't have it yet because the DNA takes so long to make RNA, which takes so long to make proteins. Another issue, let's see, the more trouble it has moving its nutrients and wastes through the goop and out the cell membrane. So through the cytoplasm and across the cell membrane fast enough. So this stuff is the diffusion stuff that we've talked about before. That's the stuff that I think you already know. So the idea here is that if you have a nice little cell, it doesn't really take long for stuff to diffuse from here out to here, or for nutrients to diffuse from here into here. But if you have an enormous cell, you can have a mitochondrion in here that it would just take so long for the nutrients to for the waste to diffuse out and the nutrients to diffuse in, that it just might take too long and the cell might die. So maybe the mitochondrion wouldn't get oxygen fast enough, or maybe, I don't know what else, maybe the nucleus wouldn't get the nutrients it needs, the nucleotides or whatever, to come in fast enough. So diffusion is the name of the game here. So the idea here is that cells really need to be small. So therefore cells are small. So here are some examples of small cells. These are your red blood cells. Can't see them without a microscope. Here are plant cells. They need to be small too. You can tell they're plant cells, remember, because of this thing, the cell wall, and they also have chloroplasts in them. And even very long cells like neurons have very small diameters. So here's the idea. You can have the cell body of a neuron in your spinal cord, and one of these extensions can go all the way down to your toes. And that's really, really, really long, so that's not a small cell. But the diameter of it is very small, so stuff can diffuse into it and out of it pretty easily. Okay, section 2, cell division in prokaryotes. So remember, pro means no, because it rhymes. Pro no. You're such a pro, you don't need a nucleus. So these are little guys, the bacteria. And their cell division is a lot easier than your cell division because they're simpler and they don't have a nucleus and they don't have a whole lot of DNA. Their DNA is little, it's circular, it's easy to replicate. So reminders about prokaryotes. Here's a prokaryote. They do not have a, hopefully you're all writing this in before you see it. They do not have a nucleus. Very good. They do not have membrane-bound organelles. Another way to write this is membranous organelles. They don't have membranous organelles. In other words, they don't have mitochondria, they don't have Golgi bodies, they don't have endoplasmic reticulum, they don't have any of that stuff. So they have just one chromosome, and it's a circular chromosome. It's kind of hard to see that it's a circle here because it's kind of wound up, but they're going to have one chromosome and it's going to be shaped like that without one particular start or stop, really. And they include bacteria. So those bacteria also archaea, I should add that in. So here's a prokaryotic chromosome, and you can see, let's say we start it here and draw a path. It's a circle. It doesn't really have one start and one stop. Cool, huh? So remember, a bacterium has a DNA, a chromosome, and it has some ribosomes. It's got a cell membrane and it's got a cell wall, and that's kind of all there is to it. So the DNA of prokaryotes, meaning bacteria, is one circular chromosome. Not true in you. And so here's the way they reproduce. You've got a chromosome, and the chromosome replicates, and then the chromosome, one of them goes over here, and the other one goes over here, and then the cell splits. Bum, 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 all done. So cell division in prokaryotes. There's the parent cell, and the chromosome replicates here. And if this isn't in your notes, I think you might have to write this part in. Then the cell splits, and you are all done. So here's the idea. You end up with two identical daughter cells. Unless there was a mutation here when it was replicating its DNA, this should be identical to this one as far as the DNA is concerned. So prokaryotes, such as bacteria, divide into two identical cells by the process of, it's called binary fission. The single chromosome makes a copy of itself. The cell wall forms between the chromosomes dividing the cell, and a cell membrane too. So anyway, here's an animation of it, and hopefully this will come up in the video pretty well. So hopefully we'll start again from the beginning here in a second. So you start out really, oh, there you go. You start out with one cell, and there's your circular chromosome. And so the DNA has to replicate first, so it'll start here, and it's kind of just reproducing along, and here it is separating out. You've got the two done, and then you make your cell membrane and your cell wall grow in, and then you are done. And these are called daughter cells. It's kind of sexist. They're not son cells or child cells, they're daughter cells. So there's a electron micrograph of a prokaryotic cell undergoing binary fission. So in other words, bacterial cell reproducing. Here's E. coli dividing. So this one was 1 a minute ago, and now it's starting to become 2. And that one's dividing, and that one's dividing. Cool, huh? Which cells have a nucleus? Prokaryotes, no. No. Eukaryotes, yes, you are a eukaryote. Bacteria, no, because they're prokaryotes. Fungi, yes. Animals, yes. Plants, yes. And here's the tricky one, protist. I told you no. Oh, but I lied, because a protist is a eukaryote. So this is truly the tricky one. It's confusing because it's single-celled, but it's one of the eukaryotes. These are the 4 types of eukaryotes. And a protist is special because it's not multicellular. So fungi, animals, and plants are multicellular except for yeast. And these are all either unicellular or they don't have tissues and stuff. So they're very simple if you could even consider them multicellular. But they're all eukaryotes. Which cells do binary fission? That would be bacteria. So prokaryotes, bacteria, and archaea. And really, we're just calling them bacteria and archaea now, aren't we? How you can tell when your biology teacher's old. Okay, which cells have just one chromosome? Prokaryotes do, which would also be true of the 2 types of prokaryotes, and there they are. Which cells have to copy their DNA before they divide? Boo, no fair, teacher hasn't taught this yet. So think about that. Who would have to copy their DNA? So here's your cell, and whether you do binary fission or mitosis, you're going to have DNA, right? Whether it's in a nucleus or not. And so you're going to end up with daughter cells, right? If you scrape your skin and you're making new cells, you start with 1 and you make 2, right? And there's your DNA, and it might be in a nucleus if you're eukaryote. So let's do that. Okay, so to go from this 1 to these 2, do you have to copy your DNA? And the answer is, of course you do. So everybody has to copy their DNA before they replicate. I mean, before the cells divide. Okay, and I think that's a good stopping point.